Have you ever wondered what it takes to truly master your mind and defy the odds? Today, we dive into the extraordinary life of David Goggins through his book, Can't Hurt Me. This is not just a book, it's a masterclass in mental toughness and resilience. From overcoming a traumatic childhood to becoming a Navy SEAL and an ultra-endurance athlete, David's story is a testament to the power of the human spirit. Stay tuned to find out how you too can push beyond your limits and achieve the impossible. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of this incredible journey. David Goggins believes that most people only utilize about 40% of their true potential. According to him, we often fail to tap into our natural abilities and capabilities. Throughout his life, David has repeatedly proven that he can push himself further, break his limits, and achieve more than what seems possible. If he can do it, so can you. You can overcome all the pain, fear, and challenges in your life and become someone you never imagined. This summary will guide you on how to achieve that. David grew up in a wealthy neighborhood in New York. His father owned a successful business named Skateland, a roller skate rink with a bar on the second floor. His mother was a housewife, 17 years younger than his father. David also had an older brother named Toughness, Jr. From the outside, their family seemed normal, but in reality, it was far from it. David's father had a terrible temper and controlled his family with an iron fist, making them work at Skateland every night. At just 8 years old, David's job was to maintain the roller skates and collect rent from customers while his mother worked as a cashier. Any mistake would result in severe punishment from his father. On one occasion, his father dragged his mother down the stairs from the second floor to the first. He even smashed her head against a wall once, and when David tried to protect his mother, his father beat him with a belt. Despite this, his mother endured years of abuse. David often slept during school because he was exhausted from working at night. When he was in the first grade, he would fall asleep in class due to fatigue, and his body bore countless bruises and scars. These circumstances prevented him from learning any lessons taught in school. Finally, one day, his mother decided she had enough. She took one of her husband's rarely used credit cards and car. During breakfast, she announced that she was leaving. David and his brother quickly packed their clothes in garbage bags. Their father insulted and berated their mother, but she had made up her mind. David and his mother moved to Indiana, where his grandparents lived, to start a new life. Though he was in the second grade, David still couldn't read or write. However, he was fortunate to have a teacher who spent extra time with him. This teacher, a strict but caring nun named Sister Catherine, taught him to read and write by the end of the year. Sister Catherine also taught David about human nature. His father always smiled, but was a bad person. On the other hand, Sister Catherine never smiled, but was a good person who helped David a lot. In the third grade, David encountered new challenges as students were required to write in cursive. He had just started writing and reading in capital letters and struggled with cursive writing, causing him more academic difficulties. David's older brother couldn't adjust to life in Indiana and returned to work at Skateland with their abusive father. Meanwhile, David and his mother moved into public housing, paying $7 and receiving government assistance for food and other needs. His mother started working at a store and enrolled in a state university, attending classes after work. David was the only black student in his school and, academically, the weakest. His teacher enrolled him in a special program in the third grade, suspecting he had ADHD, a condition affecting attention and behavior control. Instead of helping him more, his teacher often sent him out of the classroom, causing David to develop stress and social anxiety, making him fearful of people and crowds. Truth hurts. Since David couldn't grasp the lessons in school, he resorted to cheating. He passed from elementary school to high school by cheating. During his teenage years, he was filled with anger. His high school had 12,000 students, and only 5 of them were black. David faced a lot of discrimination and was often called derogatory names, which fueled his anger. One time, David and his cousin were walking down the street when a car passed by. A white boy in the car yelled out racial slurs at them. David and his cousin ignored it, but a few moments later, the car stopped. The boy got out and pointed a gun at David's head. David was terrified, but did nothing. After a few tense moments, the boy got back into the car and drove away. David was furious because the people insulting him didn't even know him. They had no idea who he was as a person. He had never wronged them, yet they wanted to hurt him and even wished he was dead. By his junior year, David was so fed up with everything that he started to act out, doing exactly what people expected him to do. He began wearing baggy clothes and had an unusual hairstyle. His grandfather had given him a second-hand car for his birthday. David installed a massive speaker in the car and started playing loud music. He would drive to school with blaring hip-hop music, adopting the same attitude as the people who mistreated him. It seemed like David was headed nowhere in life. He was failing every subject and often absent from school. His mother received a letter from the school stating that if David didn't improve in his senior year, he wouldn't graduate. However, David had a dream. His grandfather, a retired Air Force cook, was very proud of his job. He still wore his uniform to church every Sunday. David became fascinated with pararescue, soldiers who jump from planes with parachutes for rescue missions. He assumed the Air Force would accept anyone into their team, but he was wrong. David learned that he needed to pass a test called the ASVAB, which is like the military's SAT. This realization marked the beginning of his transformation. David looked at himself in the mirror and understood that he alone was responsible for his life. His mother had become busy with her work. She had completed her graduation and was now working as an instructor at a university. She had worked tirelessly to forget her pain. David realized he couldn't rely on anyone and that if he truly wanted to join the Air Force, he needed to work extremely hard. He started shaving his head and changed the way he dressed. He distanced himself from his anger and hip-hop music. David began waking up at 5 a.m. every day to exercise and run miles, regardless of the weather conditions. He started studying diligently for every subject. He would read, write down what he read, and then repeat it aloud 2 or 3 times. David continued this routine for 6 months. Finally, he passed the ASVAB test and completed his high school education. The impossible task. When training began, David was 6.2 inches tall and weighed 175 pounds. He excelled in running, push-ups, sit-ups, and flutter kicks. However, swimming was a crucial skill for pararescue, and David was not proficient in it. Due to financial constraints, his mother could never afford swimming lessons for him. David had to undergo several water exercises during the training. The instructors tested their confidence underwater, as rescue missions often required soldiers to jump into the ocean. David struggled significantly with this, and his performance score was very low. The underwater training lasted only 10 weeks, and during this period, he also had to undergo a medical checkup and blood tests. During the checkup, doctors discovered that David had sickle cell anemia, a condition that could lead to a heart attack with excessive exercise. They left the decision to continue the training up to David. The underwater training was becoming unbearable for him. His record stated that he pulled out due to sickle cell, but David knew he had given up and not pushed himself hard enough. David was extremely disappointed with himself for missing an opportunity to change his life. After being discharged, he took a job as a security guard at a hospital cemetery, working for very little money. To cope with his failure, David started overeating, often finishing an entire box of donuts in one sitting, causing his weight to balloon to 300 pounds. One night at the hospital, David met a man working for Ecolab, a pest control company. The man mentioned he got a free truck, didn't have a boss breathing down his neck, and earned 30% more than David. Intrigued, David decided to take the job. However, working there was incredibly challenging. David spent entire nights moving from one restaurant to another, catching rats and cockroaches. He would set traps for rats and spray insecticides in filthy restaurant kitchens. Knowing the condition of these kitchens, you would never want to eat there. David worked this job for several months. One day, in a restaurant, he found a massive cockroach infestation under the kitchen sink. When he sprayed them, they scattered everywhere, some crawling on the walls, others flying onto his head and shoulders. At that moment, David realized he had had enough. He ran out of the restaurant, leaving all his equipment behind. When he got home, the first thing he did was take a long, hot shower. After showering, David saw a commercial on TV for Navy SEALs, the world's toughest operational force. The commanding officer in the commercial said they needed men who didn't settle for being average and who had the drive to overcome every challenge. David felt as if this message was directed at him. Tired of his aimless life, he decided to prove himself once again. Many officers rejected him initially because he was too overweight. But David didn't give up. Finally, he met Officer Shalho, who believed in him. Shalho told David that he had to lose 100 pounds in 3 months and retake the ASVAB test, scoring well. David got to work. He woke up at 4 a.m., ate a banana for breakfast, and spent 2 hours on a stationary bike while reading the ASVAB study guide. Then he practiced swimming for 2 hours in the pool. After that, he went to the gym for bench press and leg exercises. For dinner, he ate chicken breast and vegetables. Before bed, he spent another 2 hours on the stationary bike. He also included push-ups, pull-ups, and a 4-mile run in his routine. David met the minimum requirements for the test and was thrilled. He called his mother to share the good news. He had also achieved the weight required for the SEALs, but this was just the beginning. Taking souls. Becoming a Navy SEAL requires 6 months of intense training known as BUD-S, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. This training is divided into 3 phases: physical conditioning, diving, and land warfare training. Only about 20% of the candidates successfully complete BUDS, as it tests not only their physical strength but also their mental endurance and determination. David failed the training twice. The first time, he was struck by double pneumonia, and the second time, he broke his knee. However, he did not give up and tried a third time, ultimately becoming a SEAL. He was given a final chance and told that if he got injured again, his journey would be over. Determined, David decided he would push through no matter what, even if it meant breaking his ankle. He became the only person to attempt BUDS 3 times in 1 year and eventually succeeded. The SEALs are famous for their Hell Week, the toughest part of the first phase of training. During Hell Week, trainees undergo 130 hours of grueling physical training. They perform push-ups, sit-ups, lunges, and flutter kicks, followed by swimming in cold ocean waters. They must lock arms to form a chain, preventing anyone from drowning. Instructors then take the trainees to the beach, where they must roll in the wet sand to make it stick to their bodies, adding extra weight. They are then ordered to repeat the exercises. Sometimes they must carry heavy loads or take large inflatable boats through rough surf. Trainees are given no rest and are not allowed to sleep or cover themselves to stay warm. Instructors constantly shout at them day and night, and the routine is relentless. Instructors repeatedly call the trainees weak and worthless, urging them to quit and go home. David often asked himself why he was there. Seals are not made. Being there is a choice. Bud S is not just a physical challenge, but an emotional test as well. Many trainees quit. They ring a bell 3 times and leave their helmets on a cement patch. But David didn't want to be one of them. He learned to keep his mind calm. He showed his instructors that neither he nor his fellow trainees could be broken, no matter how difficult the challenges or how harsh the insults. David formed a group with 5 other strong men, and none of them gave up. In one test, they had to carry a heavy inflatable boat on their shoulders for 4 miles. The instructors sat and watched, sipping coffee. To David, they seemed like enemies. Exhausted by the grueling exercises, David motivated his teammates. He told them to show the instructors what they were made of. They lifted the boat higher, ran faster, and chanted, "You can't break us." David called this mindset taking souls, proving the naysayers wrong and showing them just how strong you are. During his 3rd attempt at Buds, David was on the verge of being dropped. The rigorous physical training had caused a fracture in his right ankle. Each step was excruciatingly painful. David developed a routine. He woke up at 3 a.m., wrapped his ankle in thick socks and several layers of duct tape, then put on another thick sock and more tape before finally lacing up his boots. He did this for both ankles. Initially, the pain was unbearable, but eventually he felt nothing. During physical training, he constantly reminded himself that becoming a Navy SEAL was his ultimate dream, and this was his last chance. He managed to push through the pain using this method. In the second phase, one exercise required them to swim 100 meters with 16 pounds of weight strapped to their waist and an 80-liter water tank tied to their body. Despite these challenges, David succeeded. On the final day of training, instructors had them do numerous push-ups, sit-ups, burpees, and flutter kicks. They were then instructed to dig holes and bury themselves up to their necks. David started laughing during these exercises, finding them no longer torturous. Seeing this, the instructors told him to come out of the hole, as they were amused by his reaction. Finally, David graduated as a Navy SEAL. His mother attended the ceremony. He became one of the few African Americans in Navy SEAL history to achieve this honor. From a troubled childhood, struggling to read and write, to a rebellious teenager working low-paying jobs, David had transformed into a respected Navy SEAL. He aimed to continue overcoming every challenge by controlling his mind and pushing through adversity. For David, the journey didn't end there. He continuously sought ways to challenge himself. He joined the Army Ranger School and graduated with the Honor Man Award. David also spent 2 years working as a hiring officer, traveling from school to share his story and inspire students. David had a successful career as a marathon runner and triathlete. He participated in the San Diego one-day ultramarathon, where he needed to run 100 miles in 24 hours. David completed it in just 19 hours. He also competed in the Las Vegas Marathon and the Hurt 100 in Hawaii. David entered these marathons to gain an invitation to the Badwater Ultramarathon. He aimed to raise money for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, which provides scholarships to the children of fallen soldiers. The Badwater Ultramarathon covers a grueling 135 miles and is considered the toughest foot race in the world. David finished 5th in his first attempt and 3rd in his second, raising $2 million for the foundation in the process. After conquering ultramarathons, David became a triathlete. He participated in the Ultraman World Championship in 2006 and the Ironman World Championship in 2008. As always, he prepared his mind and body rigorously, waking up early to run long distances, swim for hours, and sweat it out on the bike. David faced many challenges during these races, sometimes doubting himself, but he persevered through all the difficulties. In 2009, David trained for the Race Across America, a cycling race across several states. While recording his mileage, he noticed his heart racing at 150 beats per minute, causing him to feel strange. Doctors diagnosed him with atrial septal defect, ASD, a congenital heart condition where there is a hole in the heart. They were shocked that he had survived such intense physical activities for so long. Surgery was imperative, and his heart was patched up. The first surgery failed, but the second was successful. Nothing could stop David, not even ASD. His next goal was to break the Guinness World Record for the most pull-ups in 24 hours. The record was 4,020 pull-ups. David failed on his first and second attempts, feeling shame, humiliation, and disappointment. But he didn't give up. He practiced harder, preparing meticulously. On his third attempt, David succeeded, completing 4,030 pull-ups in just 17 hours. This record stood until 2014. Today, David is a fitness inspiration to his followers on Twitter and Instagram. He is frequently invited to speak at universities and corporate events to inspire others. He motivates students, salesmen, and business executives by telling them that they are capable of much more than they think. He emphasizes that one should not set limits for themselves because, with focus and determination, they can achieve what they once thought impossible. Thank you for listening to our summary of Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. We hope you found it as inspiring and motivating as we did. Remember, David's story teaches us that no matter how tough life gets, we all have the power to push through and come out stronger on the other side. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more transformative book summaries. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and defying the odds.